and use powerful over emotive language.
I told you that you need to be afraid because they are coming for you. The ISIS assault, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria signals the beginning of the reverse crusade.
Apart from public broadcasting outlets, all U.S. media are privately owned. According to 2012 Business Insider figures, 6 corporations own 90% of the media. General Electric, Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, CBS, and News Corp, owners of Fox News.
News footage of terrorist attacks, things that people are seeing replayed on television. They're learning from these experiences, but they are also affecting the brain in similar ways as if it was a direct experience. This can lead to phobias. They're consuming high levels of media about terrorist attacks.
These are the main figures in the anti-Islamic movement in the US. First is lawyer David Yerushalmi, co-founder of the American Freedom Law Center. He's a prime mover in legislation aimed at banning Sharia law in the US. Then there is Daniel Pipes, who runs the Middle East Forum. His hostility to Islam and the Arab world meant his appointment to the United States Institute of Peace was almost blocked in 2003. The journalist and commentator Stephen Emerson runs the investigative project on terrorism, which has suggested there is a Muslim conspiracy to take over the US. I made email requests to interview these 3 men, as well as Robert Spencer and Frank Gaffney. Gaffney runs the Center for Security Policy in Washington, D.C., and has suggested that mainstream Muslim organizations in the US want to destroy it from within. He's closely connected to the Trump administration, and the president has used Gaffney's research center to justify his policies towards Muslims.
This is the ultimate goal of charges of Islamophobia: to stigmatize, demonize, marginalize, and ultimately criminalize criticism of Islam.
Robert Spencer has ties to Americans for National Existence, with connections to Israel. Israel funds his website, Jihad Watch, which says its goal is to expose Islam and jihadists in the modern world. Spencer was barred by the UK for hate speech that could lead to inter-community violence. Spencer and Gaffney both turned down my requests for interviews. Robert Spencer works closely with an anti-Islamic campaigner in New York called Pamela Geller. Together they run the American Freedom Defense Initiative, the AFDI, which ran a campaign against Muslims in 2015, costing $100,000. Geller is best known for having campaigned against a plan to build a mosque near the World Trade Center in 2009.
I opposed the...
In AFDI's 2013 tax return, the organization's income was shown as $958,000. In the same tax year, Jihad Watch's tax return showed a donation to AFDI for over $389,000. There seemed to be a well-funded set of interconnected groups, working concertedly against the Muslim community in the US and abroad. The movement now has a clear influence on government, which wasn't there before. It's also having an impact on American life. When he was inaugurated, Trump surrounded himself with campaign figures and new appointments who reflected the election promises he'd made. Stephen Bannon used to run the right-wing news website Breitbart and took over as Trump's election strategist in August 2016. He's now White House chief strategist. Much has been said about Bannon's influence on the new presidency, describing him as a puppeteer and the great manipulator. Bannon and senior presidential advisor Stephen Miller helped write the executive orders aimed at restricting U.S. travel and immigration by nationals of 7 majority Muslim countries. Trump's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn, resigned after admitting to misleading the vice president about his communication with the Russian ambassador. Al Jazeera's Mahdi Hassan asked him about his policy on terrorism suspects.
Would you kill the family of a terror suspect, yes or no?
I would have to see what the circumstances of that situation was.
Are you kidding me?
I would have to see the circumstances of that situation.
What circumstances would justify the killing of a family, a wife and a child?
It would have to be the circumstances that we were facing at the time.
Flynn's tweets were also revealing. "We are facing violent but very serious and cunning radical Islamists," he tweeted. "We can be war-weary when we win. If we lose, we have nothing." He also urged his followers to retweet that a fear of Muslims was rational. Daniel Pipes founded the Middle East Forum in 1992 to warn of what he called the rising Islamic presence in the West.
I think we will have a larger role.
In 2014, Pipes Middle East Forum's tax return listed the Donors Capital Fund and the Abstraction Fund as its 2 main sources of income, to the tune of $2.25 million. The forum also gave out grants, including to the Friends of Israel initiative, for just over $250,000. The Council for American Islamic Relations, CARE, estimates that between 2008 and 2013, over $200 million was donated to anti-Islamic organizations. A joint report between CARE and the University of California says that 73 organizations benefited from these funds. Many such donors are hidden behind trust funds, which collect the money and distribute them without revealing the donors' identities. Donors Capital Fund is listed as being based in Virginia. It allegedly channels millions of dollars a year to Daniel Pipes, Robert Spencer, and their associates. The fund's tax return shows donations to a list of organizations, which includes Daniel Pipes' Middle East Forum. The Abstraction Fund is also on the list. Not having had any replies to my emails, I went to their offices in New York City.
He's not expecting you, obviously.
We've actually tried sending them emails, but no one came to us, so...
Okay.
Are they willing to speak to the media or not?
He said that they're not interested in any way.
Well, this is a network that's been around now for 15 or 20 years, and it really came into its own in the aftermath of September 11th. We have 4 or 5 individuals who are the key drivers. They are the ones who are providing the intellectual and scholarly work, such as it is, behind this network. It's people like Frank Gaffney, who runs the Center for Security Policy, and you have David Horowitz and Daniel Pipes, 2 others. Daniel Pipes actually has a genuine scholarly background, but he has really gone hard onto the anti-Islam, anti-Muslim bigotry in the last 10 or 15 years, so much so that he has lost the support of many of the people he used to work with and associate with when he was a well-respected scholar. Then you have Robert Spencer and Steve Emerson. Steve Emerson categorizes himself as a counterterrorism expert, but his counterterrorism policies are really just anti-Muslim bigotry that are masquerading around a security veneer.
Frank Gaffney and Daniel Pipes are on the advisory board of something called the Clarion Project, which Ken Good says has received $25 million from the Donors Capital Fund. There are 5 films on its website, including Obsession, made in 2005, Radical Islam's War Against the West. It was reportedly distributed free to 28 million homes before the 2008 presidential elections. The Clarion Project has been linked in media reports with an Orthodox Jewish organization called Aish HaTorah. On its board is Walid Fares, a Lebanese-born academic, political pundit, and Middle East commentator for Fox News. Aish HaTorah is Jerusalem-based, but shares a New York address with the Clarion Project, as well as staff and fundraising sources. The Donors Capital Fund 2008 tax return showed its total income was over $67 million. It also showed that it donated over $17 million to the Clarion Project. I asked the Donors Capital Fund for an interview, but they declined. It's funded by the Sky Foundation, the Abstraction Fund, the Bradley and Berry Foundations, and the Donors Capital Fund. The money flows to 5 main organizations and self-styled research bodies, including the Middle East Forum and the Clarion Project. These are driven by Daniel Pipes, Stephen Emerson, Robert Spencer, Frank Gaffney, David Yerushalmi, and David Horowitz. And their work is promoted by a group of campaigners including Pamela Geller and Walid Fares. Conservative NGOs like Act for America, Stop the Islamization of America, and the Eagle Forum complete this well-established and comprehensive network.